Let's talk about something that will challenge everything you've heard about Messianic prophecies. Yes, those ancient predictions that have spanned millennia, influencing kingdoms and civilizations, are about to reveal secrets few dare to explore. Have you ever wondered how promises made thousands of years ago can directly impact your life today? Get ready to discover not only fascinating stories but also powerful truths that can transform your worldview and spiritual journey. Imagine understanding the roots of the Messiah, from Abraham to David, and seeing how each prophecy connects surprisingly. It's like assembling a divine puzzle, where each piece reveals a little more of God's greatness. And the best part? You are about to dive into this adventure of knowledge and revelation. Let's uncover these mysteries together and discover how these prophecies can be the key to a new understanding and purpose in your life. The first prophecy. The story of Messianic prophecies begins in Genesis, with the first prophecy made by God right after the fall of man. There, in the Garden of Eden, God told the serpent that the offspring of the woman would crush its head. It is interesting to note how, even in the moment of greatest despair, a light of hope was lit. The promise of a Messiah was there, at the very beginning. And it's amazing to think about how this prophecy would unfold over the centuries, weaving a thread of hope and covenant. The one who would come to redeem humanity was already foreseen from the start, showing that divine plans are eternal and unchangeable. As the biblical narrative progresses, this initial prophecy is like a planted seed that grows and develops. It's almost as if God was preparing the ground for the great act of redemption that would come to pass. It's curious how the scriptures, in an almost poetic way, intertwine this promise with other significant events, like the promise to Abraham. Here, we not only see divine patience but also his wisdom in guiding history so that everything fits perfectly. And have you thought about how this reflects in our lives today? Sometimes waiting and preparation are necessary for great accomplishments. In everyday life, it's interesting to apply this idea of preparation and patience. For example, if you are seeking to achieve a great goal, think of how small daily actions are like seeds that, one day, will bear fruit. Read inspiring books, like Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, to fuel this journey. And as you prepare, remember the promise of a better future, just as God promised a Messiah. This kind of vision can transform your waiting period into a time of growth and preparation for something grand. And just like in the Bible, sometimes the greatest prophecy about your life is in the details of your daily routine. The promise to Abraham. Speaking of promises, we can't leave out Abraham, a central figure in the fulfillment of the Messianic prophecy. God made a powerful covenant with him, promising that all nations would be blessed through his offspring. Abraham, a simple man of faith, became the father of a great nation, and through him, the Messiah was promised. Think about the magnitude of this promise. Abraham, unknowingly, was planting the seed for the coming of the Messiah, whose eternal reign would change the course of human history. It's fascinating how the faith of one man can have such vast and eternal repercussions. But Abraham didn't have an easy journey. His faith was tested many times, from the promise of a son to the request to sacrifice Isaac. In every test, Abraham showed unwavering trust in God's promises. And have you stopped to think about how your faith can be a tool for change, not just for you but for those around you? Just like Abraham, we are called to trust and wait at the right time. This can be seen in your professional life, personal relationships, and even your dreams and aspirations. Abraham's example teaches us to persevere, even when everything seems against us. In practice, applying Abraham's faith in your life means not giving up in the face of challenges. Imagine you are investing in a new business or project. At first, it might seem difficult and even impossible, but remember the promise and persevere. Reading about success and failure stories, like those found in Think and Grow Rich, can be an excellent source of motivation. Just as Abraham held firm to the promise, you too should keep your eyes on the goal, believing that the best is yet to come. And so, from promise to promise, the story unfolds, leading us to the next great chapter. Descendant of David. Now, moving forward in the biblical timeline, we reach the promise made to David. God assured that from his lineage would come a king whose reign would be eternal. David, a king after God's own heart, saw in his lineage the continuation of the Messianic promise. Imagine this, a simple shepherd who became king and had the honor of knowing that the Savior would come from his lineage. It's a giant leap of faith and purpose. The Messiah would be not only a spiritual leader but also an heir to David's throne, consolidating the divine covenant and prophecy. David faced numerous battles and challenges, but his trust in God never wavered. The promise of an eternal reign through his lineage was an anchor amidst the storms. And it's interesting how this promise remained alive through the centuries, even in times of great adversity for the people of Israel. This persistence and faith can be seen in our lives when we face challenges that seem insurmountable. Remembering that there is a greater purpose and promise can be the strength we need to keep going. To apply this in your life, think about how your daily actions and decisions can impact future generations. Just as David, who lived a life of faith and courage, your choices today can create a lasting legacy. Whether you are building something, be it a business, a family, or a personal project, keep in mind that your impact might be much larger than you imagine. Reading inspiring books, staying informed, and surrounding yourself with people who share your vision can help keep this promise alive. And so, moving from promise to promise, the story continues, guiding us to the next significant chapter of Messianic prophecies. And before we continue, make sure to subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, and leave your like. The suffering servant in Isaiah 53. Moving forward to the prophetic writings, we find in Isaiah 53 one of the most moving descriptions of the Messiah. There, the prophet Isaiah speaks of the suffering of God's servant, the one who would carry the sorrows and iniquities of many. This prophecy is especially touching because it shows the human and suffering side of the Messiah. He would come not only as a powerful king but as someone who would identify with human suffering. This passage reminds us that suffering is part of the journey, but that there is redemption and purpose in it. And this teaches us a lot about resilience and faith. Isaiah describes a Messiah who would be despised and rejected by men, someone who would know pain deeply. And how many times do we feel like this in our own lives? Yet, Isaiah's message is one of hope. The servant's suffering is not in vain, it brings healing and redemption. Reflecting on this prophecy, we can find strength in our moments of pain, knowing that even the Messiah went through this to bring us salvation. This inspires us to face our challenges with courage and faith, knowing that there is a greater purpose in everything. To apply this message in your life, think about how you can turn your suffering into strength. If you are going through a difficult time, seek support and inspiration in stories of overcoming. Reading about historical and contemporary figures who overcame great challenges can be a source of encouragement. And remember, just like the Messiah in Isaiah 53, your pain might have a greater purpose. Using this perspective can change your view of challenges, making you see each difficulty as an opportunity for growth and transformation. And so, from pain to pain, the prophecy unfolds, leading us to the next chapter. The birth of the Messiah in Bethlehem. We reach the culmination of Messianic prophecies, the birth of the Messiah. According to the scriptures, the Savior would be born in Bethlehem, a small town with great significance. Bethlehem, the city of David, would become the setting for the fulfillment of an ancient prophecy. Imagine the scene, a small, humble town, but chosen for such a grand event. It's a powerful reminder of how God chooses the most unexpected places and people to carry out His plans. And it's fascinating to see how this small town became part of history as the place where the Messiah came into the world. The birth of the Messiah in Bethlehem was not just a historical event but also a sign of hope and renewal. It's as if, at that moment, all the promises and prophecies converged into a single point. The Messiah, coming from a royal and divine lineage, was born in a simple place, showing that divine greatness can manifest in simplicity. And how many times in our lives do we see great blessings arising from unexpected moments or places? It's a reminder that we should always be attentive to the small things because great promises might be hidden within them. To apply this message, think about how you can find greatness in the simplicity of your daily life. Perhaps in a gesture of kindness, a moment of reflection, or a small but significant action. Value the small moments and places because they could be the settings for great accomplishments. Reading inspiring stories about people who made a difference from humble circumstances can be a great way to get inspired. And so, from simplicity to simplicity, the story of the Messiah's birth in Bethlehem leads us to the next chapter, where the prophecy continues to unfold. The eternal reign of the Messiah. Finally, we reach the apex of Messianic prophecies, the eternal reign of the Messiah. The scriptures are clear in stating that the Messiah will come to establish a kingdom that will never end. This reign will be not only physical but also spiritual, bringing peace, justice, and redemption to all of humanity. Imagine a reign where there is no more pain, suffering, or injustice, but only the full realization of God's promises. It's a glorious vision that inspires and motivates us to live with purpose and hope. And to think that all this was promised since the times of Abraham and David. The eternal reign of the Messiah is the fulfillment of all the promises and prophecies made over the centuries. It brings the final covenant between God and humanity, an eternal pact that cannot be broken. And it's amazing to think about how each prophecy fits perfectly, forming a great divine mosaic. This teaches us about God's faithfulness and how He fulfills His promises, no matter how long it takes. In our lives, this can be seen as an incentive to trust in God's plans, knowing that, in due time, everything fits perfectly. To apply this vision, think about how you can live according to the principles of an eternal kingdom. Practice justice, peace, and kindness in your daily actions. Be a reflection of the Messiah's reign in your community, showing through your actions the hope and redemption He brought. Reading about inspiring figures who lived with this vision can be a great way to get inspired. And so, from reign to reign, the prophecy continues, guiding us to live with purpose and faith while we await the final fulfillment of all divine promises. Now that you have embarked on this journey through Messianic prophecies, how about reflecting on what this means for you? Think about how these millennial promises, from Genesis to Isaiah, can bring light to your own quests and challenges. Have you ever wondered what your role is in this great story? And what if the suffering and trials you face today are part of a bigger plan, a path to an eternal reign of peace and justice? How can you apply these lessons in your daily life to live with more purpose and hope? Let these reflections guide your actions. And to learn more about the fruit you need to bear, click on the video that appears on the screen.